Now, the work of political commentators and social media influencers is to feel the pulse of the times, swaying public opinion on certain issues. And that's especially true of my next guest, whose opinions, no matter how controversial they may be, have earned him a somewhat loyal following, you could say. He has leaned pro-government in recent times, hailing the Tinubu administration for its policies and criticizing the opposition. I'm joined now by the political commentator, author, and social media influencer, Reno Omokri, who has strong opinions on everything from Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, former governorship candidate Dino Melaye, and of course, the developments in Rivers State with the lifting of the emergency rule. Well, that's it. Oh, glad to have you join me, Reno Omokri.
Thank you, indeed.
Well, you're not dressed traditionally today. You're wearing a suit for a change.
Everything I'm wearing is made out of Ashaoke, with made in Nigeria Ashaoke from Ifeanyi. From head to toe, my shoes are actually made in Nigeria. They're crafted in Lagos. This is from Nigeria. Not a single thing on my body is not made in Nigeria.
Okay, promoting the Nigeria brand.
Yep.
That's interesting. Well, where do we start? Let's start with the issue of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan. The chairman of NBA is asking the Senate to let the senator resume, because she has served her 6-month suspension, and subsisting court case should not be an issue stopping her. What do you think?
Well, let's look at precedent. It's not what I think. We look at precedent. Why do we have off-season elections in Anambra State, in Ekiti State, in Osun State? For example, in Nigeria, we have elections between February and March every 4 years. So the next one is due 2027. But we're having an election in Anambra State, November 8th. We're having an election in Ekiti State, July next year, 2026. We're having an election in Osun State, August. It's because in those states, you had people who went to court. And when they went to court, the clock stopped ticking in those states. And when the clock stopped ticking, by the time they got into office, that's when the INEC was now empowered by the courts to set elections. So when you go to court, the clock stops ticking. Natasha Akpoti was given an opportunity by the Senate to apologize and then get the suspension lifted. She didn't take it. She acted probably, in her own best interest. But by the time she went to court, don't forget, she went to court, the clock stopped ticking. Now, if she's dissatisfied with what has happened, maybe she could go back to court because, I don't know if you're aware of this, because she's also accused me of the same thing that she's accused the Senate President.
I've read about that. I've heard about that.
And eventually I was settled out of court because she lied. I was able to demonstrate. She said I made sexual advances against her on May 6, 2014, during a state banquet by President Jonathan for President Uhuru Kenyatta. And I was able to prove with a first-class British Airways ticket that I was out of the country. I had been sent by President Jonathan to the State Department in the US. I showed my passport stamps. And then afterwards, I was settled out of court. So she has a pattern of dishonesty. Look at what happened at the IPU. At the IPU, even till today, a lot of Nigerians think that she was invited there. She was a representative. The seat where she sat was actually the seat for Honorable Kafilat. Honorable Kafilat had gotten up. I think she was probably called to the high table. And she went there and sat on that seat and then made that statement that demarketed Nigeria. So there is a pattern of dishonesty here. Now, I don't know what happened between her and the Senate President. I wasn't there. But because the best predictor of future events is past events, by her record of reckless dishonesty, it's very hard to believe anything she said.
It's looking to me, frankly, I don't know how you will respond, like this is a vendetta, because we are not, you could prove me wrong, but the point here is the Senate said, go on suspension for 6 months. The NBA should know what the Constitution says. She served it out. The clerk wrote her and said, sorry, you can't come back because there's a subsisting court case. But the NBA is saying that should not stop her from returning. Mind you, she has a section of the society she's representing. The court said the suspension is excessive, not an order for Senate to recall her. But the point that is being made here is that she served her suspension. That's what you call status barred. Whether she apologized or not is not the question. We're not talking about her and the Senate president, mind you. We're talking about the Senate rules and the fact she was giving a punishment, she served it out. So she should naturally get back.
Well, listen, I've got a master's in law from England. I worked as a temp even at the British Parliament. In the British Parliament, parliamentarians are suspended. In Congress in the United States, congressmen are suspended. That's not the issue. The NBA is not a court. The NBA is a professional body. You have courts, judiciary. The other guy who said there's no judiciary in Nigeria.
No, but they're lawyers.
It's quite, yeah, they're
So
lawyers.
they should know.
Listen,
the Constitution.
They're lawyers, and then they have a president who is elected, and he has his opinion. There are other members of the NBA who will disagree. But the point is that we're not going with opinions of anybody, we're going with precedents. The thing is, when you go to court, the clock stops ticking, and I just proved that. That's why we.
So let me ask you now, because I have had to discuss this issue. Just supposing, let's suppose that, you know, sometimes courts delay. Supposing this is 2025, just supposing that this drags in court till 2027. What happens? She stays off the Senate?
Well, that is for the court to decide. You and I here, Ndi, we cannot begin to talk about matters that are sub judice. We can give opinions, but this is a matter before the court. So we have to allow the court, because we are a society governed by law and order. These are things that she should have thought about before going to court. Don't forget, she went to court. And then, other than going to court against the Senate, she also went to court against even individuals in the Senate. She's in court with Umwaboye, Senator Umwaboye. She's in court.
I mean, that's just individual. We're talking about the Senate.
I'm talking about she's in court with the Senate.
Yeah.
I also said as an ancillary, she's also in court with other principal officers. She's made some very weighty allegations that she hasn't proven. But that's not the issue. The issue is that on this particular matter, she chose to go to court. So there's a principle in law called the eggshell principle. You take your victim as you find it. So she takes the situation as she finds it. She was the one who went to court.
Okay, so for you, the Senate is right.
Well, not for me. I'm going by the precedent that has been set in Nigeria and in other common law countries. Okay. I'm governed not by my emotions. I'm governed by what the law says, the precedent.
All right. Well, let's talk about the question of just yesterday. Today, Fubara is supposed to resume work. The president lifted that suspension. But there's been so many arguments here and there. Like you listened to Anas, he said it was what the president did was unconstitutional. In fact, I had a program yesterday where I enumerated the points that Section 305 could allow the president, you know, to suspend a sitting governor. Mind you, in 2013, the Attorney General then told the president, then Jonathan, you can't do it. He did in Yobe and two other states. Imagine.